The last thing I remembered was running. Running from something I couldn't even describe. Running until my lungs burned. Running until my legs gave out. Running until everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on a pile of hay inside a stranger's barn in a remote Korean village I had never seen before. The air smelled like earth and wood smoke, and standing over me, backlit by lantern light, was a man I didn't know. He whispered, "You came back, just like she said you would." I didn't even know his name. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know how I got there. And that was when my nightmare, or my destiny, truly began. My name is Amina, and what I'm about to tell you is the strangest, most beautiful, most terrifying love story I've ever lived. If you love deep, mysterious Afro Korean love stories, subscribe to Afro Korean Love Stories. Because, bestie, this one will haunt you. 2 weeks before I woke up in that barn, I was living in Seoul, a normal life, a boring life, a life that was slowly suffocating me. I worked as a translator for a tech company in Gangnam. I lived in a tiny apartment in Mapo. I had a routine: wake up, work, sleep, repeat. I had moved to Korea 5 years ago. My mother was Korean, my father was Nigerian, and I, like so many mixed children, spent my life caught between two worlds. Never fully Korean enough, never fully Nigerian enough, just existing in the in-between. I thought Seoul would be different. I thought it would feel like home. But it didn't. I felt invisible. I felt alone. And the loneliness, bestie, it was eating me alive. I had just ended a relationship. A 3-year relationship with a man who loved the idea of me but never actually saw me. He loved that I was exotic. He loved that I spoke Korean fluently. He loved showing me off to his friends. But he didn't love me. Not really. When I finally ended it, when I finally walked away, I felt relief, but also emptiness, because I realized I had spent 3 years of my life trying to be enough for someone who would never see me as enough. Have you ever felt invisible even when you're standing right in front of someone? Comment yes if you've ever felt that kind of loneliness. I needed to get away. I needed air. I needed space. So I booked a weekend trip to the countryside, Gangwon province. I found a small guest house online in a village I'd never heard of. A place called Sobae-Kri. The photos showed mountains, rice fields, traditional hanok houses. It looked peaceful, quiet, exactly what I needed. I took a bus from Seoul, a 3-hour ride through winding mountain roads. I put in my earphones, I closed my eyes, and I tried not to think about how empty my life felt. But halfway through the trip, the bus broke down, middle of nowhere. The driver said it would take hours to get a replacement. He told us we could wait or walk to the nearest village, about 5 kilometers away. Most people waited, but I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be trapped in that bus with strangers and my own thoughts. So I started walking. The road was surrounded by dense forest, trees so thick they blocked out the sun. It was late afternoon, but under those trees, it felt like evening. The air was cold. Too cold for September. I walked for maybe 30 minutes. And then, I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Matching my pace. I turned around. No one. I kept walking. Faster this time. The footsteps continued. Closer now. My heart started racing. I told myself I was being paranoid. That it was just an animal. Just the wind. Just my imagination. But then I heard breathing. Heavy. Ragged. Not human. Not animal. Something else. I started running. I didn't look back. I just ran. Off the road. Into the forest. Branches scratched my face. Roots tripped me. But I kept running. And then, I don't know how, but I fell. Hard. My head hit something. A rock maybe. And everything went black. Bestie, I thought I was dying. But instead, I was crossing into the beginning of the strangest chapter of my life. When I woke up, I didn't know how much time had passed. It could have been hours. Could have been days. My head was pounding. My body ached. And I was lying on hay. Soft, dry hay. Inside a barn. The walls were wooden, old. There were tools hanging on hooks, a lantern glowing softly in the corner. And the smell. It smelled like animals and earth and something sweet I couldn't place. I tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. And that's when I saw him. A man, tall, broad shoulders, dark hair falling into his eyes. He was wearing simple clothes, a worn shirt, work pants, boots covered in mud. He looked like he'd been working in the fields all day. He was staring at me. Not with surprise, not with concern, but with something else. Recognition, like he knew me. I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. He moved quickly. He brought me water in a metal cup. He held it to my lips, and I drank. Slowly, carefully. When I finally found my voice, I said, "Where am I?" He didn't answer right away. He just kept staring at me with those dark, unreadable eyes. And then he said softly, "You're safe. That's all that matters." I said, "How did I get here?" He said, "I found you in the woods. You were unconscious. I brought you here." I said, "Who are you?" And he smiled. A sad, strange smile. He said, "My name is Min Jae, and you look exactly like her." I didn't understand. I said, "Like who?" But he didn't answer. He just stood up, grabbed a blanket, and draped it over my shoulders. He said, "Rest. We'll talk in the morning." And then he left, just walked out of the barn, leaving me alone, confused, terrified. I should have run. I should have called for help. But my phone was dead, my bag was missing, and honestly, I was too weak to move. So I lay there, in that barn, in that stranger's care, and I waited. The next morning, Min Jae came back. He brought me warm soup. Miyok guk. Seaweed soup. The kind Korean mothers make for their daughters. He handed it to me without a word. And I ate. Because I was starving. Because it tasted like comfort. While I ate, he watched me, not in a creepy way, but in a way that made me feel seen, like he was memorizing my face, like he was afraid I would disappear. I said, "You said I look like someone. Who?" He hesitated. Then he said, "My fiancée." My heart dropped. I said, "Where is she?" He looked away, his jaw tightened, and he said, "She's gone." I didn't know what to say, so I said, "I'm sorry." He nodded. And then he said something that sent chills down my spine. He said, "She told me you would come." I stared at him. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Before she disappeared, she said, when the world is ready to heal you, someone who carries my face will return." Bestie. I felt my stomach twist. I said, "That's impossible. I don't know you. I don't know her. This is just a coincidence." But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Because deep down, something about this place, about him, about everything, felt familiar. Like I'd been here before, like I'd known him before. If you're getting chills right now, subscribe, because this story gets so much deeper. Min Jae took me outside later that morning. The village was small. Maybe 20 houses. All traditional Hanok style, with tiled roofs and wooden beams. There were rice fields, stretching as far as I could see, mountains in the distance. It was beautiful, peaceful, but something felt off. The moment we stepped outside, people stopped what they were doing. An old woman hanging laundry turned and stared. A man fixing his fence froze. A group of children playing stopped mid-game, and they all looked at me, not with curiosity, but with fear, with recognition, with something I couldn't name. One old woman gasped. She crossed herself, like she'd seen a ghost. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, ran toward me. She grabbed my hand and said, "Annie, you came back." I looked at Min Jae, confused. I said, "I don't know her." He gently pulled the girl away. He said something to her in Korean I didn't catch. And she nodded, tears in her eyes, and ran back to her mother. I said, "What's going on? Why is everyone acting like they know me?" Min Jae took my hand. His hand was rough, calloused, warm. He said, "They think you're her. They think you're Hana." I said, "Who's Hana?" He said, "My fiancée. The woman you look like. The woman who disappeared exactly 1 year ago. In the same woods where I found you." Bestie. Everyone acted like I was someone, or something they feared. And I didn't know if I should run or stay. Min Jae took me to his house. It was small, traditional, beautiful in its simplicity. Wooden floors, paper doors, a small garden with vegetables growing. It felt lived in, loved. He showed me to a room. He said, "This was my sister's room. She moved to Seoul years ago. You can stay here as long as you need." The room was simple: a low bed, a small dresser, a window overlooking the fields. And on the dresser, there was a photo, a framed photo of a woman. I picked it up, and my blood went cold. The woman in the photo looked exactly like me. Same face, same eyes, same hair texture. It was like looking in a mirror. I dropped the photo. It clattered to the floor, and Min Jae rushed in. He picked it up carefully. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. I said, "That's her. That's Hana." He nodded. I said, "How is this possible?" He said, "I don't know. But when I saw you in the woods, I thought she'd come back. I thought maybe the universe had given me another chance." I felt tears in my eyes. I said, "I'm not her. I'm not your second chance. I'm just me." He stepped closer. So close I could feel the heat from his body. He said, I know you're not her. But Amina, you're here for a reason. I don't believe in coincidences. Neither should you." And bestie, in that moment, I didn't know if I should be terrified or comforted. Over the next few days, I stayed in that village. I told myself I would leave as soon as I could contact someone, as soon as I could figure out where my phone and bag had gone. But something kept me there, something I couldn't explain. Min Jae and I fell into a rhythm. He would wake up early and work in the fields. I would help around the house, cook, clean, simple things. And in the evenings, we would sit together, talk, share stories. I told him about my life in Seoul, about feeling lost, about the relationship that broke me, about the loneliness that followed me everywhere. He told me about growing up in the village, about losing his parents young, about raising his younger sister alone, about meeting Hana and finally feeling like he had a family again. And then losing her. He said she disappeared without a trace. No body, no note, nothing, just gone. The police searched. The village searched. But it was like she'd been swallowed by the forest. I asked, "Do you think she's still alive?" He looked at me for a long time. And then he said, "I don't know. But I think she sent you to me. I think she knew I needed to heal. And you needed to be found." Subscribe if you believe some people come into your lives exactly when you need them most. One afternoon, Min Jae taught me how to make kimchi. We stood in his kitchen, side by side, chopping cabbage and mixing spices. He was patient, gentle. He would guide my hands, show me the right way to fold the leaves. And I felt it, a warmth, a pull, something growing between us that I couldn't deny. I taught him how to make Nigerian jollof rice. He laughed when I told him it was the best rice in the world. He said, "You haven't had good Korean rice then." We argued playfully. We cooked together. We ate together. And for the first time in years, I felt happy, seen, whole. One night, I fell asleep on the living room floor. I'd been reading a book Min Jae lent me, and I just drifted off. When I woke up, there was a blanket over me, soft, warm, and Min Jae was sitting nearby, watching the fire. I said, "You didn't have to do that." He said, "I wanted to." I sat up, and we just looked at each other. And in that moment, I felt it. I felt myself falling. Falling for a man I barely knew. A man who thought I was a ghost. A man who looked at me like I was both a miracle and a tragedy. Bestie, I was falling in love with my mysterious farmer, and I didn't know if that was beautiful or dangerous. Besties, what I discovered next about Hana, about that forest, about why I really ended up there, it changed everything. Don't go anywhere. Subscribe so you don't miss out, because the twist, it's coming. The little girl from the village, the one who called me Annie, she started visiting Min Jae's house. Her name was Somi. She would bring me wildflowers. She would sit next to me and hold my hand, and she would stare at me with these big, sad eyes. One day, I asked her, "Somi, why do you keep calling me Annie? I'm not your sister." She looked at me very seriously, and she said, "You are. Hana Annie used to bring me flowers too. She used to braid my hair. She used to sing to me. And you do all the same things." I felt a chill run down my spine. I said, "Somi, I'm not Hana." She tilted her head. And she said something that made my heart stop. She said, "I know. But Hannah Unnie told me you would come. She said when I see someone with her face, I should be kind, because that person would need kindness." I stared at her. I said, "When did she tell you this?" Somi said, "The night before she disappeared. She came to my house, she was crying. She said she had to go away, but someone else would come, someone who looked like her, and that person would help Oppa Minjae smile again." Bestie, I couldn't breathe, because how is that possible? How did Hannah know? How did she know I would come? That night, I confronted Minjae. I found him in the barn, fixing a broken fence. I said, "Minjae, I need you to tell me the truth. All of it. What really happened to Hannah?" He stopped working. He put down his tools, and he looked at me with exhausted eyes. He said, "I don't know if you'll believe me." I said, "Try me." He took a deep breath. And he said, "Hannah wasn't from here. She came to the village 5 years ago. No one knew where she came from. She just appeared one day. In the woods. Just like you." My stomach dropped. I said, "What do you mean, just like me?" He said, "She was running from something. She couldn't remember what. She couldn't remember how she got here. She just knew she had to run. And when I found her, she was unconscious. In the exact same spot where I found you." I felt the room spinning. I said, "That's impossible." He said, "The villagers, they believed she was a spirit, a forest spirit, because no one disappears into these woods and comes out alive. But she did, and she stayed, and we fell in love." He paused, his voice cracked. He said, "But she always knew she didn't belong here. She would have nightmares. She would wake up screaming about something chasing her, something she couldn't see, something she couldn't name." I whispered, "I had those nightmares too, before I came here." He looked at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. He said, "Amina, I think these woods, they're connected to something. Something we don't understand. I think Hannah was taken by whatever lives in that forest. And I think it brought you here to replace her. If you're getting chills, drop a comment. Because bestie, I was terrified." I said, "Why would it do that? Why would it take her and bring me?" Minjae shook his head. He said, "I don't know, but the old woman in the village, Grandmother Choi, she knows the stories, she knows the legends, maybe she can tell you." The next morning, I went to Grandmother Choi's house. It was the oldest house in the village, small, dark, filled with the smell of incense and old wood. She was sitting by the fire, waiting for me, like she knew I would come. She didn't smile, she just gestured for me to sit, and when I did, she said in a raspy voice, "You want to know about the forest?" I nodded. She said, "The forest has been here longer than this village, longer than Korea itself. And it's alive. It watches, it waits, it takes." I said, "Takes what?" She said, "Broken souls. People who are running from something, people who are lost. The forest offers them refuge. But everything has a price." I felt my heart pounding. I said, "What's the price?" She leaned closer. Her eyes were cloudy but sharp. She said, "The forest keeps you. It gives you peace. It gives you love. But when your time is up, it takes you. And it sends someone else in your place." I whispered, "Hannah." She nodded. She said, "Hannah's time was up. The forest took her. And it sent you." I said, "But I don't want to be here. I didn't ask for this." Grandmother Choi smiled, a sad, knowing smile. She said, "But you were running, weren't you? You were lost. You were broken. The forest heard you, and it answered." Tears streamed down my face. I said, "So what happens to me? Does it take me too?" She said, "Only if you choose to stay. The forest gives you a choice. You can leave. Go back to your life. Forget this place. Forget him. Or you can stay and accept the love the forest brought you to. But if you stay, one day, the forest will call you, and you'll have to answer." I left her house shaking. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know what to do. That night, I heard it again, the footsteps, outside Minjae's house, slow, deliberate, circling. I woke Minjae up. I said, "Do you hear that?" He listened, and his face went pale. He said, "Stay inside, lock the door." But I followed him. I couldn't let him go alone. We stepped outside. The moon was full, the fields were silver, and standing at the edge of the forest was a figure, a woman, wearing a white hanbok. Her hair was long, black, covering her face. Min-jae froze. He whispered, "Hana." The woman didn't move. She just stood there. And then, slowly, she lifted her head, and I saw her face. It was my face. Bestie, I almost collapsed, because I was looking at myself, standing at the edge of the forest, staring back at me. Min-jae grabbed my hand. He pulled me back toward the house. But I couldn't stop looking. I couldn't stop staring at her. At me. And then she spoke. Her voice was soft, distant, like it was coming from underwater. She said, "You have to choose, Amina. Stay or go, love or fear, life or safety." I said, "Who are you?" She said, "I'm the part of you that ran. The part that was too afraid to stay, too afraid to love, too afraid to be seen. But he sees you. He sees all of you. And if you run now, you'll spend the rest of your life running." Min-jae pulled me inside. He locked the door. And we sat on the floor, breathing hard, holding each other. I said, "What was that?" He said, "I don't know. But Amina, I need you to know something. I don't care if you look like her. I don't care if the forest sent you. I don't care if this is magic or fate or coincidence. I care about you, the real you. The woman who laughs when she burns rice. The woman who sings off key. The woman who's been broken and is trying to heal. That's who I love." I stared at him. I said, "You love me?" He said, "I love you. I've loved you since the moment you woke up in my barn and looked at me like I was crazy. I love you, Amina. And I don't want you to stay because of Hana, or because of some legend. I want you to stay because you want to. Because you feel the same way I do." Tears poured down my face. I said, "I'm scared." He said, "So am I. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." And then he kissed me, deep, desperate, like he was trying to anchor me to this world, to him, to us. And I kissed him back, because I realized I wasn't running anymore. I was choosing. I was choosing him. I was choosing love. I was choosing to be seen. Subscribe if you believe love is always a choice, even when it's terrifying. The next morning, I made my decision. I told Min-jae I was staying. Not forever. Not yet. But, for now, I wanted to see where this led. I wanted to give us a chance. He smiled. The kind of smile that starts in your eyes and spreads to your whole face. He said, "I'll take now. I'll take whatever you can give me." We started building a life together. A small life, a quiet life, but it was ours. I helped him in the fields. I cooked. I learned the rhythms of the village. And slowly, the villagers stopped looking at me like I was a ghost. They started seeing me. Amina. Not Hana. Me. Somi became like my little sister. I braided her hair. I brought her flowers. I sang to her, and she would say, "You're better than Hana, Ani, because you're here." Months passed. And the forest was quiet. No more footsteps. No more figures. No more whispers. It was like it had released me, like it had accepted my choice. One evening, Min-jae and I were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset over the rice fields. He said, "Do you ever regret it? Staying?" I said, "No." "Do you regret finding me?" He said, "Never." He took my hand, and he said, "Amina, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if the forest will come back. I don't know if we'll have forever, but I know I want to spend every moment I have with you." I said, "Me too." And we sat there, holding hands, watching the sky turn orange and pink and purple. And for the first time in my life, I felt peace. Real peace. But bestie, peace in stories like this, it never lasts. One night, 6 months after I'd chosen to stay, I had a dream. I was standing at the edge of the forest, and Hana was there. But she wasn't scary anymore. She was smiling. She said, "Thank you." I said, "For what?" She said, "For loving him. For healing him. For choosing what I couldn't." I said, "What happened to you? Where did you go?" She said, "I'm where I'm supposed to be, and you're where you're supposed to be. But Amina, the forest will call you one day, not to take you, but to ask you a question, and you'll have to answer." I woke up gasping. Min-jae was next to me. He pulled me close and said, "Bad dream?" I said, "I don't know." A week later, I found out I was pregnant. Bestie, I was terrified, and overjoyed, and confused, because what did this mean? What did this change? When I told Min-jae, he cried, happy tears. He held me and said, "We're going to have a family, a real family." But that night, I heard it again. The call, soft, distant, coming from the forest. I walked outside, alone. I stood at the edge of the trees, and I said, "What do you want from me?" A voice, not Hannah's, not mine, something older, something ancient, said, "I want nothing. I gave you a gift. Love. Healing. Purpose. But now I ask, will you let others find what you found? Will you be the bridge?" I didn't understand. I said, "What does that mean?" The voice said, "Others will come, lost, broken, running. And you will guide them. Not into the forest, but out of it. Into love. Into healing. That is your purpose now." And then, silence. I went back inside. I didn't tell Min-jae. Not yet. But I understood. The forest didn't want to take me. It wanted to use me. To help others the way it helped me, and I was okay with that. 2 years later, Min-jae and I opened a small guest house at the edge of the village. We called it Forest's Edge. And we welcomed travelers. People who were lost. People who needed rest. People who were running from something. We gave them food, shelter, kindness. And many of them, they found what they were looking for. Peace, love, a new beginning. Our daughter, Hannah, yes, we named her Hannah. She's 1 year old now. She has her father's eyes and my smile. And sometimes, when I hold her, I swear I see the ghost of the woman I never met. The woman who sent me here. The woman who gave me this life. People ask me, "Do you ever want to go back to Seoul? Do you miss your old life?" And I say, "No, because my old life was me running. And this life is me finally standing still, finally being seen, finally being loved." Bestie, some love stories begin in coffee shops, some begin at weddings, some begin on apps. But mine began in a forest, in a barn, with a man who thought I was a ghost, and who loved me anyway. If you believe love finds you when you stop running, share this video. If you believe healing happens in the most unexpected places, subscribe to Afro Korean Love Stories. If you believe some people are sent to you by forces you can't explain, leave a comment telling me your story. Because bestie, life is strange, love is stranger, but sometimes, the strangest things are the most beautiful. My name is Amina, and this is my love story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in love that defies explanation. Subscribe for more Afro Korean love stories that will make you believe in magic again. Until next time, besties, stop running, start choosing, start loving. This is my story, and I'm so grateful you were here to witness it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Comment your country, and tell me if you believe in destiny. I read every single comment. Thank you for being part of this journey. I love you all, besties. See you in the next story.